Texas Chain Saw Massacre.
I got a real good eye for prime meat.
I wish you'd call me Tex.
I've got a mind. Just slit your goddamn throat.
Shit, I just killed the whole fucking sheriff's department.
I changed my mind, actually. I'll move here with you.
Fuck off.
You heard it up top. It is that spooky time of year where we are about to dive in and talk all things horror here on Normies Like Us when we talk about something especially spooky this week. That's right. We're kicking things off with the OG. That's right. It's the Texas Chain Saw Massacre here on Normies Like Us with your hosts, I guess Sheriff Colin.
I guess I'll be Micah Sawyer.
Okay. I was playing like Mike Etherface in my head.
Mike Etherface. Yeah. Well, there's really only two characters in this franchise.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, but yeah, Texas Chainsaw. So I mean,
Woo.
I'm excited about it. As you said, it's kind of the OG. I mean, this predates Halloween. You know, this is 4 years or 3 years before Halloween. So it is kind of one of the innovators. And obviously a lot of the legacy of it is movies like The Hills Have Eyes and Wrong Turn and kind of that whole genre of wrong place in the wrong time. You know, this set that up. And it's an interesting franchise, but I want to ask your history with it. You know, have you seen all these? Have you seen some of them? And we're just going to kind of be doing generalities today, everybody.
You know, now, Mike, again, spooky season. We've done the classics on this podcast. Like you just said, we've talked Halloween. We've talked Friday the 13th. And Texas Chainsaw, we talked Freddy. Texas Chainsaw was never really my bag, man. I was thinking about it prior to this episode. I think the only ones I had ever really seen before were the first one, the second, and 3D. And we'll talk more about what I watched for this one. I've had a little more exposure here. But I know this was kind of your bag, dude. And like when we were talking like Halloween stuff or episodes, you have pitched in the past, let's do a Leatherface, right? You love this.
Yeah. I've always kind of had an affinity for this. I think it was some of the earliest horror movies I got into. We had a projector like on the wall of the living room, and we would just do these double features, the Texas Chainsaw and Texas Chainsaw 2. And
wow.
Those are my favorite, right? I had never, honestly, though, I saw the reboot, which I think is fine. We'll get into it. But I had never seen the rest of the films in this franchise. And it is a little uneven, and we'll get into it. But I think the first two are incredible, and, big affinity.
And again, we're going to talk about it. As far as franchises go, Mike, there are some kind of daring takes and stuff. They kind of take some leaps. So it's going to be interesting to talk about it. But just again, like as far as like icon or whatever, I want to say Leatherface is closer to the Pinhead, wink, wink. That might be a hint for another episode we talk about. Or the Chucky of it all, where it's like, he's not Jason, he's not Michael, he's not Freddy. You know, he's one of these ones on the sides, even though he's kind of like the king.
The argument can be made, right? Like, as the OG, the originator, but the franchise itself, it doesn't have this legacy the way that Halloween does, or Freddy or Chucky, right? For some reason, I never grew up with people recommending me the sequels or any of the ones that weren't the first two. And, the reboot I think is fine, and we'll get there. But a lot of films in this franchise, and there's 9 now. We had the new one in 22 come out. They're a little weird, but they're also kind of fascinating. Yeah, we had one come out this year.
It's like it's kind of never gone away. And again, we'll just keep saying we'll get there because that's the catchphrase for this episode. But I want to, before we do, I want to ask you a key question, Mike. Have you ever used a chainsaw?
No, I haven't used a chainsaw. I've had the opportunity.
I'm scared.
I've
used to cut some stuff.
My dad had a dump truck that was jacked up so the rear axle would spin, and off of the axle was a 3.5-foot saw blade, and we would cut logs on what we called the truck saw.
Mike,
decidedly Leatherface type of machination.
I think you're describing the vehicle the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles use to go on adventures.
Basically, yeah. So not a chainsaw, but I have used a truck saw.
That's not a real thing.
Oh, yeah, I have video. I got the receipts. But
Wow.
you did find for us a very interesting, I think, useful image online, which is showing what timelines which movies constitute. So there's 3 primary timelines, and I think we're just going to kind of go in timeline.
Let's do it.
Order as we do this. So let's.
Hell yeah.
I'm revved up. Let's get into.
Let's rip it, dude. Let's use this chainsaw right now and get talking. Rip. The Texas Chain Saw Massacre coming up.
Nice. I'll have to send you the truck saw video.
We're entering hot tub monkey territory where you just think that's a real thing. I don't know, dog.
Yeah, no. My dad also has a very old winter jacket he wears when he goes to work, in the woodshed and cut logs and shit. And it's torn to it's like a gravedigger jacket. He looks like a madman because he will not replace it. It's just all tattered. It's wild stuff. But Texas Chainsaw, let's see, that's a good segue to bring it back, right?
That's a great segue to talk about Texas Chainsaw Massacre. We're here. We're going to talk the franchise, but first we're going to talk about sort of the film that kicked it off. An independent film, as we talked about Halloween sort of being the same thing. But prior to Halloween, as we've been saying, you've got this. You've got Tobe Hooper, getting a camera together in a small crew and going, I just want to make something fucking wild. And now there's a lot of talk, Mike, about the Ed Gein serial killings that maybe they're based on that. Tobe Hooper's gone on to say no, it was really just sort of about the oppression of fascism in Texas. And baby, this movie's wild, Mike. I mean, it's one of your favorites.
Yeah. And so I literally finished this again 20 minutes before we recorded. So over the past 3 days, I watched all 9 Texas Chainsaw movies, starting with the ones I hadn't seen, then
too many,
and then finishing on the classic because I wanted to have that that be the last note, right? So having seen it recently, it's incredible. It's shocking, the craft, the cinematography. There's something about bringing horror in the daylight, the way that Halloween brought horror into a regular neighborhood. There's something special here, for sure. And when was the last time you'd seen the original? And how do you feel about it?
It'd been a long time. Again, not being one of my big ones. I think there's kind of a vibe and energy that people prescribe to this where they go that movie is fucking dirty. That movie is fucking gross. It looks real and raunchy. It's kind of like a Hannibal or a Holocaust Cannibal Holocaust.
Right? Yeah, it's almost like
this
a
sort of
documentary voyeur vibe almost.
Too true, too real, and it turns me off so hardcore, Mike, that I think that's the hard entry point for me into this series. And the other thing, to go back to the chainsaw of it all, if Freddy gets me with his little claws, or if Michael gets me with the butcher knife, or Jason hits me with the machete, Mike, I feel like I could maybe walk away from that. The fucking chainsaw gets you. It mauls whatever it gets. It's just it's gone.
Yeah, there's something visceral about this movie, and the chainsaw included. But yeah, the presentation kind of, it's muggy, it's uncomfortable. It's extremely uncomfortable.
Yes.
And it feels hot, sweaty. The production was hot and sweaty. It is not pleasant, and it's incredible. And even
it's incredible.
Yeah. And spoilers for all these movies, this is 1974, but kind of the setup and payoff where, the hitchhiker and then the cook and then Leatherface. And then it turns out all of those 3 characters are connected, right? When she thinks she escapes and then the cook is oh yeah, it's going to be all right. Then hits her with a broom. And then, man, what a fucking scenario.
Maybe hadn't seen it since college. So first time in adult life, 33-year-old man here. It's been a while since college. Yeah. Watching this and I'm going it's so progressive. I don't remember any of these characters, but the particular standout, the brother in the wheelchair, of course, where I'm just watching it. I'm going this is so interesting. It's telling these stories of like these outsider people, even then, sort of being oppressed by the state of Texas, essentially.
Capitalism, right?
Yeah.
The meat packing jobs are gone, and yeah,
We're making our own.
Yeah, it's about like displacement and like going from the nuclear family, you know, and then now we're in the Vietnam era, and America's values are changing and in flux, and the gas shortage plays into this. Like they cannot get gasoline; they have to wait for the shipment of gasoline. That's why they get stranded. So the movie is about a lot of things. It's not. It has social commentary, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
It's not shallow. I'm very impressed how much social commentary it has. Again, to go to how much other films steal from it when they sort of just start going like, whoa, this is like a genre we can do. I don't know if you saw this article recently. Ridley Scott was like, the first Alien movie, that was like based on Texas Chain Saw Massacre.
Wow.
Like I was blown away by that film. I just wanted to recreate it or whatever, right?
I see that line so clearly now. I cannot believe it.
It does make sense, but the legacy of these other things sort of not inheriting the social commentary of it and instead just being like, well, it's like all about the chills and thrills, baby. But this film, like, again, to go against what your preconceived notions are, if you are like me, where you're just like, it's just like a dirty, gross movie.
Yeah.
Like you just said, the progression of those characters we meet. The hitchhiker thing is its own fucking
it's
scary
a slow
movie,
burn,
Mike.
too. Yeah.
And then halfway through, you're like, this is a slasher film. Everyone's still alive, pretty much. I really don't understand. Then it ramps up and it kind of all happens at once. And you're kind of like, oh, okay. And then the slasher movie's over. And the rest of the film is a survivor dealing with the fallout of a slasher movie and trying to escape from one. And that's crazy.
Yeah, it is. It is wild. And the sad thing about the franchise, I think, is the lack of depth and commentary, right? But yeah, the setup of this thing and the slow burn, like what Sally goes through, it's nuts, you know? And then how quickly Leatherface, we haven't even talked about Leatherface in this movie, because that's the thing with this franchise too. It's not about Leatherface, right? It's about all of the family, right? And this, it's just wild the way they're all connected. And Leatherface comes out of nowhere with that hammer. Not a lot of blood. He just twitches his feet. Like, it's disturbing without being gory, you know? And it just happens. There's no music cue. It just, he shows up and 2 people are dead now, right? No circumstance, no buildup. And it's like, sometimes wrong place, wrong time. And that's terrifying, you know?
And things have been scary before that, but this heightened moment of violence, what it leads to,
and the dinner scene,
it's wild. Oh, I mean, it's just
one of the most iconic
thing.
Scenes in horror is that dinner scene, you know? And the production design is crazy. She's sitting in an armchair. The arms are arms, human arms. It's wild. Yep. They got a little light bulb and a skeleton, you know, like, the production design is insane and very real. Like it was very stinky carcasses, right? But it
of course,
feels real because it is. Like, it feels gross. It feels bad. So Texas Chainsaw 1, absolutely incredible. I mean, the ending when she's in the truck, you know, Jesse, Breaking Bad, just laughing, screaming, traumatized, right? It's so affecting, and the performances are so raw, and there's nothing like this in the franchise besides this. So I consider this required horror viewing, but it's really unlike anything else in the franchise. Nothing pulls the strings like this.
No, and like you said, the interest in the Leatherface versus the family is kind of an argument the next 8 films are going to kind of internally have with themselves.
So. Yeah, because obviously he's iconic. He's on the poster. He's got the chainsaw, and he wears people's faces. He has like 3 different masks in this movie.
The makeup, I forgot about that this time watching, where I'm like, oh, Leatherface is like an early trans character, I guess. Like, I wouldn't want to like give that, because obviously nobody wants to be associated with Leatherface, but it kind of is, and you're like, this is interesting for some kind of reason, I'm sure.
Yeah, he's got the killing mask, the pretty woman mask, and the old woman mask. So he has 2 female masks, which might be, you know, a slight Ed Gein nod, because he would do bad things with people's skin.
And Psycho, I would assume, too, you know, the original slasher, quote unquote.
And there was furniture made of bones and stuff with Ed Gein's house. So there's a little bit of that, but the movie's not about that. Like we said, it's about disenfranchisement and the middle class and the weirdos, right? Like what lengths they would go to whatever, survive, right? Even if it's an insane motivation. So it's just special. And, like Resident Evil 7 is this movie. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's
a standout.
It's incredible. Like it captures this tone of the weird family, and that's 100%. There's a dinner scene that's like a complete ripoff of this, and a lot of these movies have a obligatory dinner scene. None are better than this. Nothing will ever be. So yeah, the acting, the tone, this is everything. Unfortunately, none of the other movies get there. Similar to Halloween, there's value, however, in some of these other
absolutely. And we're not done talking about this one. We can talk about it throughout because of the influence it has. And like you said, and the timeline to keep going. This one's tied to the first one. This one's tied to the first one.
Mm-hmm.
But let's jump to the second one because I want to say, Mike,
please,
that this film released, I think 10 years later or something like that, right? Again, directed by Tobe Hooper.
12 years later.
12 years later.
Same director,
Same director. He had a huge contract with Cannon Film Group, a film people I love. I got a He-Man poster on my wall. We've talked about it. Mike, we're big fans of Cannon.
Yep.
Now, this is... He had done Life Force. Have you ever seen any other Tobe Hooper movies, Mike? Do you kind of like him as a director?
I've just been in the Chainsaw verse with Tobe Hooper, so not familiar with his other work.
Yeah, Poltergeist, obviously the classics. Like we know that the other big ones, but like the Cannon films he made, like Life Force, which is about naked vampires, and Jean-Luc Picard, our favorite captain, comes at the end and it's like, "Oh, I'll seduce her," and you're like, "This is crazy."
Nice.
Watch it, please watch it. Now, when he's done making those films, to fulfill the end of his Cannon contract, the thing that Menachem Golan, the man who runs that studio, wanted him for was obviously, you did Texas Chainsaw. That's the biggest thing on the planet. Halloween's the biggest thing on the planet. This is a moneymaker. Make another Texas Chainsaw. Okay, I'm Tobe Hooper. I'll finally do it. And the film that comes out, Mike, now, you said you would marathon these two back to back because I am shocked as a purist lover of this franchise that you wouldn't rebel against what we get here.
Yeah. So we just talked about the depressing tone and the perfect atmosphere of this original film. And then we just get a goofy black comedy.
Now imagine the film Airplane is the sequel to like a movie about actual plane crashes.
Yeah.
Like, that would sort of be the equivalent.
No, it's wild. The tone shifts dramatically. And it
is good. It's amazing.
I would argue, this is my hot take here, this is probably the best horror sequel that's ever been made.
Wow. Now you are just saying that based on films that have sword fights involving chainsaws.
I'm saying that based on my aching banana, if you catch my drift. But what I'm saying is we get a returning director, and he takes another stab, let's say, at something that he already gave Genesis to, and I think he's completely successful. It's completely different, but I think it's completely successful in what it's trying to do. And because we get the same director, Carpenter never did another Halloween. You know what I mean?
It would be like if Aliens was directed by Ridley Scott because of the huge tone shift. But like you're saying, he didn't do that. Nobody did that.
Yeah, nobody does that.
Tobe Hooper did it.
And I think it's great. That's why I would argue it's probably the best horror sequel that's ever been made because it stands on its own. Yeah. All the Halloween movies need to be like with another Halloween movie to make sense, more or less, right? Jason, like I guess some of them stand on their own, but like this is just its own thing, and it is completely independent. Even though the original is a classic, this has total merit, and I absolutely love it. And so we're talking about ridiculous. You get Dennis Hopper. He knew the kids who got traumatized in the first one, so he's hunting down Leatherface and his family. But he ends up getting in a chainsaw sword fight with Leatherface. It's ridiculous.
Now, I had heard on another podcast someone white knighting this film, being like, people don't know about it. You have to see it. You have to see it. So I had maybe seen this for the first time like 5 years ago, maybe, Mike.
Oh, wow.
And the delight. And like you said, I probably hadn't watched the first one in 6 or 7 years prior to to seeing number 2.
Yeah.
And just like, to anybody listening, again, it's like our Karate Kid Part 3, where you just find this thing you didn't know existed. Like, if you're not watching this, if you're not going to watch any of the Texas Chainsaw Massacres, go to a party, put the second one on in the background. It will make you you will just see Dennis Hopper in black mirrored glasses driving around like a maniac, not saying any lines or anything. And then you'll see characters called Chop Top and Gramps, or who are some of the other
we get Drayton Sawyer. We get the names of our characters now.
Yes.
So
We get
cook
the family.
Yes, and we didn't even know what their name was. We know we have the Sawyers, so we have Drayton Sawyer. He's the cook, and what he's been doing is winning chili contests by cooking human meat and putting it in his chili.
Getting blue ribbons. It's so
that's
funny.
their grift. They kill people, they turn them into meat, and then win chili contests. So that's how they keep the lights on. So Chop Top and Leatherface go get the bodies. Usually it's ne'er-do-wells who don't like Texas or something, from around here kind of types, out-of-towners, and then that's the grift. So Chop Top is a version of the hitchhiker. They're not really the same character, but he's got a metal plate in his head. He's like a Vietnam vet. In my head canon, I just consider, that's the hitchhiker, whatever.
Yeah.
And then we have Leatherface, who is still kind of like a man-child. He's abused by the family. He just kind of does things because they tell him to. He's kind of a big baby. And then radio DJ. She gets the call during a murder and then airs it, and then they want to hunt her down. It's a whole thing.
So she's on the run.
She's on the run. They come to the radio station, which is an incredible sequence. When Chop Chop shows up in his little wig, he's like, "Oh, I'm a big fan," and this whole thing with the ice, that she's hiding in the cooler from Leatherface, and that whole like, what is this psychosexual situation happening, right? He kind of gets a crush on her, so Leatherface lets her live. It's wild, but also scary. Like when I first saw it, there's a lot of tension in that scene, even though there's some laughs too.
It's very funny, but the real Tobe Hooper is still here. And again, not that this isn't the real Tobe Hooper. Like, this is the stuff should I say this to you, Mike? Notorious pothead. Like, supposedly Spielberg would step in for some poltergeist stuff because like Tobe Hooper was just like blazed out of his mind. Nice. And that's like great, man. It's like whatever. Have you ever seen Funhouse, his other horror one that's like a Frankenstein monster?
No. I'm gonna have to do some
Add
Tobe
all
Hooper
these to your
homework.
list.
Yeah.
They're all bad compared to these two films.
Gotcha.
But interesting.
Yeah, no, but I think this one it's absolutely incredible. And there's still some social commentary with the yuppies in the beginning, and they're shooting signs that are like the Alamo, like Texas landmarks. They're shooting all these Texas landmarks.
Stuff.
Yeah, we have Vietnam. He's saying I'm having a flashback, Chop Top, even though it's a comedy. He's talking about like his experience in Vietnam. He has a metal plate in his head. It's wild. So
it's wild.
We're in what is the main primary timeline, right? And unfortunately, if I said definitely watch anything, I would stop here. Not completely,
right?
But like, things get pretty rough
off
for the next, let's say, 20 years of Texas Chainsaw history.
There's some up and downs. Now, Normies, let's jump to the third one here. But interestingly, we are still in the same timeline. But even though this one calls itself the third one, it's really kind of like, fuck that second one. Again, the first one's the only one that matters.
Yeah, this is where we start to get into the issue of Leatherface being more important than anything else almost in the franchise, because if it's the same timeline, like, okay, Chop Top was slightly different than the Hitchhiker, but I can like, maybe it's whatever, right? I buy in. Tobe Hooper, we're going to turn everything to 11. Fuck it. Then this is like, well, now we have Viggo Mortensen and like 6 other hillbillies that he lives with, and they're all like on a grift, and it's like, who are these people? I'm into the Sawyers. This doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
And truly, to your point, this one is called Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. So that's the intent, is to double.
Yeah, so we get a bunch of new characters that I don't really care for. I think the plot is not good in this. There is one good scene. I don't know if you saw this one, Colin.
I did not watch this one.
Don't.
I've never seen it.
No, this is one I would say skip for sure, unless you want to see Viggo Mortensen being weird, but it's not great.
I was shocked when you said he was in it.
Yeah. But the next one has Matthew McConaughey. We'll get there, and it's kind of the same thing as this, but actually better. So Texas Chainsaw 3, it's shot in California. and it shows. That's a negative. Like, you can tell a California mountain versus in Texas, so that's points off. But they do have...
we'll be talking about this for the rest of this podcast.
Yeah. We have Ken Foree in this, though. He's the guy from Dawn of the Dead, the big horror icon guy. He's in this as like a survivalist who helps him fight Leatherface. But during his fight with Leatherface, he disarms the chainsaw from Leatherface, at which point Leatherface produces a rotary tool, a Dremel, and Dremel's Ken Foree.
You think he wasn't ready to fucking lose the big boy?
You know, I got that thing on me,
always
just in
prepared.
case. Yeah. So you get Leatherface using a Dremel, and this is like, they're turning him into Jason. Like, he's more aggressive. He's not this abused kind of dog.
And Canon Group sold this off immediately after the second, even though they had a 3-picture, I think, a deal to get like 3 more Texas Chainsaw Massacre films. But they were like, this is bullshit. Sold it to Lionsgate, who I think immediately were, to what you're saying, Mike, going like, turn him into a fucking unstoppable killing monster.
Just a Jason with a chainsaw. That's what makes
those other fucking things work. Yes.
Yeah, and that is a weakness here for sure. And it's just the new characters are too messy. The hero, there's like a couple that's driving from, I don't know, Seattle to Florida or whatever. They're not that interesting either. So I'd say this one is definitely a skip. For sure. Oh, shout out, though, Kane Hodder, one of everyone's favorite Jason actors. He did kind of the stunt coordination of this, but they literally got Jason because they're trying to do that. You know what I mean?
I can't stand Kane Hodder.
No.
Fucking bullshit.
I don't know. Like, I like him being Jason. I don't know anything about him personally, but...
I'm a Derek Mears man.
Okay.
On, baby.
Fair enough. Well, Leatherface has no continuity, so I'll just stick with Gunnar Hansen.
There's no big hero character or star for this.
Just Gunnar Hansen. I think he's the original, and I think people always, obviously the original movie's the strongest, but Gunnar Hansen only did the original, so it's different every time. But let's go to 4, aka Texas Chainsaw.
Country Fried.
Yeah, Next Generation.
Yeehaw. All right, Mike.
All right.
Now this one, you sent me. Look at what this asshole is doing. It's something to that effect. That look, he's only got one move or whatever.
Yeah.
And literally him walking in and going, all right.
Yep.
And I searched for it, saw that it wasn't on anything that I have fucking streaming out of the million things I have, jumped on the old I cease to watch this bad boy.
Yep.
And I had such a fucking good time, man. This one is fun as hell.
So what do you think some of the merits are of this one? I've been kind of dominating this here. You lead for TNG.
So this was
Texas Chainsaw TNG. It was going to be called Return of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, to be fair.
Yeah.
It's like we're getting back to the roots and on that Jason shit, but
yeah, and again, it's not super acknowledging anything I would imagine that happened in the third one. It's again kind of just a sequel to the first, but calling itself like the fourth Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like, you wonder why they had to do that. But made at a time where Matthew McConaughey and then, of course, our actual lead, Renee Zellweger, were not known at all, and they released it immediately, capitalizing on their names that they were stars, because I think they had some sort of huge hit that had come out prior to it. And I think it is a luck of casting. I think it is pretty good what Renee Zellweger's doing in this movie, and that she's kind of a good final girl.
Yeah. No, I think this one really surprised me, and I'd not seen it. And I it's hard to watch this franchise because it's not on anything. Like, HBO has just number 2 and 3D. They're all over.
I don't know.
You can watch the first one for free with ads on Amazon. But anyway, this one is worth seeking out. I think it's very campy. It's shot in Texas. I saw an HEB in the background, which is a big chain kind of grocery store out there. So, all right, confirmed.
Okay.
But it's very campy. But it has probably the second best dinner scene. Well, not third, because the second movie has the second best dinner scene.
Again, it's packed.
It's packed, and it does what the third movie did, which is add a bunch of new family members, but it does it better, and they're more they kind of have more personality between the lady who's gaslighting everybody, who's Matthew McConaughey's girlfriend. Yeah. Why are you a part of it? It's really disturbing, I think, especially that end dinner scene with Renee Zellweger and her friend, and everything happening there with Matthew McConaughey and shoot me with the gun. Like, there's so much wild shit happening. Matthew McConaughey is unhinged. Renee Zellweger is doing great. I don't know why you climb up an antenna and then across a wire instead of down off the roof, but we get a very weird roof chase like in the Halloween sequels. So I think this has a lot of merit, and it's very campy. There's like an Illuminati plot.
I think it's like 5. I don't know which Friday the 13th it is that has Corey Feldman or Corey Haim. I also don't know which Corey
one of the
it
Coreys.
is, but one of the Coreys.
Yeah.
But it has that same campy edge to me, Mike, not just because that takes place at camp, but what you're saying of, again, it's a good enough cast. All these people seem like they're having a blast. I just love this idea of like Matthew McConaughey's kids on Halloween being like, can we put on a horror movie? He's like, I was in a horror movie. I think I was pretty good.
All right.
Just like sitting back and like putting it on and being like, oh yeah, I remember making this. This was a hoot.
Yeah, he's got like a robot leg.
It's crazy.
It's crazy. And it is pretty disturbing too. Like the kind of this back and forth abuse with, with the whole family's dysfunctional, but like the way that his girlfriend, like there's a lot of disturbing stuff here.
Yeah.
And there is, maybe a little bit of commentary happening too there. But Leatherface is a little bit different. He's more maybe transcoded, which warning, filmmakers don't always make trans people villains.
Yeah.
I don't think it doesn't read hard though. Like that's not the point of the character. So we're cool.
No, it actually kind of seems sympathetic in this.
And I think Leatherface is best when he's played sympathetic.
Yes.
Like he is just the weapon. Like he has no agency. He's just underdeveloped and bullied his whole life by his family.
He has that thing, Mike, that we've talked about with Jason in the past, where I love the Friday the 13th films, but he as a figure can't be my kind of hero because I'm like, he's like a kid, or in Leatherface's case, he's, mentally maybe or intellectually
Stunted,
disabled or something, right? Stunted.
Right, yeah. Absolutely.
That you just I'm not rooting against him, but I also can't root for him because I just want to be like, hey, just stop this. What are you doing? You need to stop.
Yeah, and you get shades of that in Texas Chainsaw too, when she's like begging, hey, you don't want to hurt me, right? And he so there is, he doesn't want to kill. He is just made to, right? It's almost out of fear or self-defense, right? Like even the first movie, he's like nervous as fuck that people were in the house, right? Like he is not happily aggressive. He's like freaking the fuck out.
It's
right?
territorial.
Yeah. So I think this one's pretty great. So if you could go 1, 2, 4, and then to stay, this is technically the final movie in the main timeline. We're going to jump to now. No, the Netflix 2022 Texas Chainsaw. Technically does not omit any of the sequels.
Could be the end to all these.
Yeah,
with these
absolutely. And that's what the filmmakers said. Like at this point, Leatherface has eluded capture for all these years, and he's just chilling where the 2022 Netflix. So, hey, 2022 Netflix, you watch this one.
Well, this is kind of the big one to talk about for me, in my opinion.
Okay.
Because this is like...
We'll round out the prime timeline with it.
This is what they wanted, Mike. Like this is, it's not necessarily that these are the like original owners. It truly seems like, because it's not Tobe Hooper who's like we need to make it. He's dead, unfortunately. I should point that out. So you're not getting any of the creative hands kind of returning, but whoever owns this licensing to go, okay, Friday the 13th is in financial limbo. They can't make more of those. Halloween is doing gangbusters.
We might be talking about that this month too. Who knows?
Maybe we should try to emulate what they do. And now, Mike, that formula is, of course, these Lega sequels, which we've talked about that term before, but a film where it's like, what if you just like do a sequel to the good movies, and the whole premise is you get the lead actors from then to return. But I looked it up, and I'm kind of feeling this when I'm watching the movie. They kind of can't get anyone to return from the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre because it's like everybody's dead.
Yeah, like they bring back Sally, Final Girl, but the actress has passed, so that they have just a new actress.
The character.
Yeah. So yeah, to compare and contrast this with like Halloween, obviously they did the Lega sequel where we get Laurie Strode versus Michael as an old lady, and I think they saw the success of that and were like, well, we'll just fucking do that. And
easy.
That's one of the elements that doesn't work for me in this.
Oh yeah.
But it's terrible. But there are things in this that echo the original, such as a little bit of social commentary. We have these kids coming from the big city, don't California my Texas, kind of gentrifying, and that's a joke, everybody, but gentrifying this ghost town. And, people like the old lady getting pushed out and like the locals aren't about it. But, we have these outsiders where they're not supposed to be. And that's the setup for like a classic Texas Chainsaw movie, right?
Yeah. They're buying this dead town, these
of
young hipsters, these young influencers who have come to town with investors on the way. They're like an hour ahead of them to fucking clean everything up. You're gonna clean the entire town up, okay?
That sounds like influencer planning levels. So,
yeah,
how
Jake
long could
Paul
it possibly
just shows up,
take?
it's
I've
like,
never done shit.
Yo, I bought a town, bro.
Yeah, okay.
But to the trend you said this started. Now, which one was the third film you said was California?
The third one's definitely filmed in California, 100%.
This film follows up with the 3D, which is it's the other film to shoot in. Or I'm sorry, not in 3D. The legacy of the 3D, which is that they make a prequel afterwards. That prequel and this one started a trend of shooting in Bulgaria. Now, I think this just does not look like Texas at all, in my opinion. It looks like an Eastern Bloc rundown, like I don't know, like scary place.
I hadn't even realized they moved over there because it wasn't until I saw Texas 3 and I'm like, this is clearly the California desert. This is Lancaster. Fuck out of here, right? Then I started paying attention. I had watched this prior. So that's interesting. Bulgaria now. And I think, I know you got a lot of tax credits in Georgia now. You can go to Bulgaria. But a Texas Chainsaw movie, to me, I don't know if you know this, Colin. I've been to Texas, You should film it in Texas. That's part of the identity of it.
Well, everything's bigger there, Mike.
Yeah, well, it's like not the tax credits, apparently. Got them. Like, it's like you shouldn't do Lord of the Rings out of New Zealand, right?
Well, you and I have seen X, right?
Yes, yes.
A film that is very much trying to, we've talked about this, but I think very much go like, I do see the beauty in what Texas Chainsaw Massacre was doing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to clean up the aesthetics of that a little bit and do the same sort of commentary using the same elements. And that's shot in New Zealand, Mike. Does that feel like a Texas movie?
That feels more Texas to me
than this Netflix movie,
yes,
for sure.
For sure.
Yes.
And it does feel like it's literally like hokey Blazing Saddles movie set town that was just thrown up in Bulgaria somewhere. There's not much is the way locales. So I think just spiritually, like it's trying to do something with commenting on influencer culture. We have a main character who survived, a school shooting.
It's crazy.
It's crazy. And I think that stuff, we need to discuss trauma like that. And like the fact that youths today, I mean, my high school that I graduated, had unfortunately a school shooting incident. I mean, it's all too fucking common.
Jesus Christ.
So to have characters reflecting that, because it's Uvalde, like, it's a fucking big deal. And the original movie was tackling issues. So I appreciate that they're at least bringing them up, and that sometimes it's like, oh, Confederate flag. Like, yeah, we get it. We take that down. There's not a lot of nuance, let's say, with what they're trying to talk about.
That's a great way to go.
Yeah.
So
actually, there's no nuance at all, even with the violence.
But to your point, so even the gentrification stuff where they're like, we got to take down that fucking old-timey flag because fuck that racist shit. You're like, well, you're not even doing this well. Like, you guys are
I agree with you, but I'm
assholes.
also cringing in your execution.
Yeah, exactly. You would have figured out 1,500 different ways to do this other than I'm gonna run in there and just fucking pull it down. And to your point of, yes, people in movies now, because movies should always be talking about what's going on in the culture, should have a lot of characters in it that survived school shootings, unfortunately, because that is American culture.
Yeah.
But as I'm watching this and having that mental discussion in my head of ooh, I don't know, the point I came to was, yes, they should be. This is not the film where they should be doing that.
Or the way you could. It's like a single cutaway. It's not, again, it's not subtle.
But for the execution of the moral of the story, I guess, to be for her to overcome the trauma, she has to commit an act of violence and use a gun. I don't think that's a lesson we should ever be having or teaching anyone.
It is wild. Like, I get a character arc standpoint because they set it up with the one local handyman, right?
What do you mean you don't put your hands on it?
Yeah, you ever shot a gun?
Like,
No, I've been shot at.
This is crazy.
Yeah, that is wild. But I see the character arc line, but I don't think that's the place to do it, you know?
I don't know.
And again, lack of subtlety. I mean, the original movie, even the second one, there's not a ton of gore. Like, they're pretty restrained, especially the
Very
first
tame.
film. It's very, very tame. But then this, it's just like, I'm going to kill a whole bus of kids, and it's going to be gruesome. They like cutting a lady in half, climbing out of a window, and her, you know, like, it's blunt, let's say. And that's with the script writing and the visuals. But it does make an attempt to, like, let's look at some social shit. They just don't do a great job. But this would be the technical end of the prime timeline if you wanted to, but yeah.
And just a real quick notes on the Leatherface.
Mm-hmm.
You get the old man Michael of it. He's supposed to be sort of a slower, but then revealed to kind of be a python, right? Like this deadly predator in waiting. But you lose the makeup stuff. He kind of doesn't have a great look, I would say, in general, because really they're kind of steering away from never kind of looking straight on at him. He makes a new mask.
Mm-hmm.
And then we should talk about this. An element of the first film that we didn't mention.
Yeah, they really did rip
sort
off Michael Myers. Like, car crashes, murders happening in the car, like the Rob Zombie ones. Yep.
The girl makes the call. She's horrified. Like, that whole scene is shot for shot.
Yeah.
But the scene in the original, the first Texas Chainsaw, of the sort of, and kind of Joker does this too, if you think about it, the balletic movements where you get him sort of like dancing by himself with the chainsaw.
Mm-hmm.
And the last shot of this Netflix film, Mike, being, you know, Leatherface is back and he's sort of like feeling himself, and it's kind of a very much like, and he wins at the end, spoiler alert again, in a very crazy way that truly shocked me, where I had to text you immediately.
Yeah,
as it was happening,
that's,
'cause I was like, this is nuts.
That's wild, and maybe one of the things I liked, just because it was so like, holy shit.
Very much so. And that lead actress is good, and the
Heads
girl
off
who
to
got
them.
killed, I wanted to get killed.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, I agree. I'm glad the
so
one
I was
who
like,
didn't
finally
live
this happened, good.
unlived,
But it ends very much in a, we will get another one of these. And the reception was not to where they will ever do this again.
No, and again, people have been not knowing how to do Texas Chainsaw movies ever since Tobe Hooper stopped, and the closest we've gotten is 4. But I think to transition to the next timeline,
Sure.
I think the reboot timeline is actually quite good.
I like these films.
Yeah, me too. So, reboot timeline. Let's 2003, we get a reboot before the horror reboots were really a thing. Again, kind of setting the pace.
It causes it. Yeah, you just said it sets the pace.
Yep, just like the original. So give it credit. They bring back the original DP. And again, this is a full reboot. We get Jessica Biel is our lead girl here. We get Arlie Emery as the father of the family, Pop Sawyer. And I think it's incredible. It's the kind of movie that Rob Zombie wishes he could make. Yep. Like, it's what in his head it will turn out as.
Yes.
Because
it's what he pitches.
Yeah, no, exactly. Well, everything he's ever fucking done is because of Texas Chainsaw. He even hires Bill Moseley. You know what I mean? He's just ripping off every character in a Rob Zombie movie is ripped out of the dinner scene from Texas Chainsaw 1. That's all he can do. Anyway, this one, 2003 reboot, I think it's great. It's shot great. It's modernizing it, but same DP, so it looks awesome. Yeah, I love it. What do you think? Have you seen this one?
I have seen this one. It's the same director as my beloved Friday the 13th remake, because they're like, oh, you crushed it on that Texas Chainsaw. Just do that again. And he does it again. And you're
that
like,
is one of the best Friday the 13th movies. Yeah.
I would say that both these films do a very good job of not only capturing the spirit of the original, adapting it in a very modern sense of like, look, like, we can make this thing fucking slick as hell. The 2000s. We're going to edit the shit out of it. And that is very dated, and that's fine. But it makes me laugh, and it makes me appreciate those kind of movies.
Yeah, I think this one is very, very, very good. I think really it's like Arlie Emery, man. Like because in the original movie, the cook is in the beginning, and then she runs away from the house and meets the cook again, and then it's revealed, right? But in this, it's like instead of the hitchhiker, we get a girl who was a victim, and then she kills herself in their van, and then we have to call this. Yeah, it's horrifying and different but good. And then they call the sheriff, and the sheriff is played by Arlie Emery, and so it turns out the sheriff is, crooked on this, and the way he plays all these scenes, it's nuts. Like he is so good, just as good as the original in numbers 1 and 2. Like he lives up to the legacy, as does this film as a whole. And yeah, I think it's awesome. And Jessica Biel may have awoken something in me at a teenage age.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, but I think
Blade 3, baby.
Blade 3 and sprinklers. But no, I think she's great. Honestly, as final girl here, a little bit more gore. I highly recommend this one. I think the reboot is great, which I don't really have much more to say. It just feels the most Resident Evil 7, like even more than the original. It's so gritty, right? Yeah. But have you seen the prequel to this, which got greenlit, the 2006 Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Beginning?
I was going into this podcast today going, okay, I'm going to have to tell Mike that I haven't seen any of the prequels.
Got it.
I rectified that, but I did not see this one.
Got it. Okay, well, just quickly, I think this is fucking great. I really think they crush it twice. This has Jordana Brewster as our final girl. So Fast and the Furious legacy, and it is wild. We get it's more the origin of the Arlie Emery sheriff. It's almost more he's the main villain, even more than Leatherface is, and it is awesome. Like you see how he became the sheriff by, spoilers, killing the sheriff, right? And then he just assumes the role because no one's gonna fucking check in on you. So it's really good. Similar tone. Again, Jordana Brewster's awesome. And the ending is pretty shocking. So it's I think these two, the reboot timeline, you could watch the prequel first and then the reboot. I think that's a good way to do it. And I think these are valid, extremely valid.
Damn.
So nice work.
I will track this
mid-2000s. Which that brings us to what we're going to call tentatively the worst timeline of all.
We're gonna jump.
Yeah. And so did you see then this prequel, Leatherface? This is where the timeline begins. It's not the first movie that came out.
Not canonically, or canonically.
It came out in 2017. It is then followed by the original Texas Chainsaw events, and then bookended with Texas Chainsaw 3D 2013. So this came out in 2017, but it's technically the beginning.
I was literally about to ask you what year this came out. So, okay, this one fucking sucks, dude.
Yeah,
I did watch this one today. Did you watch this?
Yeah, I watched all of them again. And this one, I'll give you my full ranking, but this is at the bottom.
This is the bottom.
This is dog shit. Yeah.
It's on Pluto TV. I threw this on at my office at work, Mike. I'm like working away. Pluto has fucking commercials. So, like, every 10 minutes, it's stopping and starting.
And the commercials are better than the movie.
Well, I thought that once. I was like, damn, Clorox. I do have to get
this. Bleach. I should get some and drink it.
There was a moment where I truly thought, can I mute it, put on a podcast while I'm working, and then sort of like be looking at it, and can I glean enough? But no, I kept it on, and this is where I just assumed that all the prequels were bad. This is the cool thing I was hinting at earlier of that no other horror franchise does. Like, this one at least takes the steps of like, let's fucking jump around the timeline. Who gives a shit? Like, there's other opportunities here.
Yeah.
And I just assumed that both of them were bad, Mike, because this one is terrible.
Yeah, no, this is terrible, but the 2006 one is good. Arlie Emery carries. He carries, and Jordana Brewster, Tuna No Crust, she does great. So we have great final girls in the reboot and that prequel. But Leatherface, it's an origin of Leatherface. And
it's a mystery.
Yeah. We get basically the kids, the sons of the Sawyers, they end up in a mental institution, and then it's like, who in this institution is actually going to turn out to be Leatherface. And they break out, their mom or aunt comes and there's a whole breakout scene and there's a bunch of these different...
There's a dim-witted heavy kid.
It's like your red herring.
Sort of like is trailing with him the whole time, and you're like, oh, of course, this is Leatherface. And they've got this excuse, Mike, where it's like, and we gave you all different names so you wouldn't be tied to your evil
your criminal past
here in this orphanage. Yeah, your criminal
So you don't
past.
know which character is which from the childhood jump to like 10 years later thing that they do. Yeah.
And it's essentially a Bonnie and Clyde duo.
Yep.
A good guy and this slow-witted kid. And you're like, okay, so who's going to be Leatherface here?
Yeah.
And I think it's pretty obvious just based on how, like, storytelling's going to go, where you're like, well, it's going to be this fucking nice guy who gets fucked up and becomes a dimwit, I guess. I know it's not a nice
like,
thing to say, but,
No, yeah, it's like they kind of pull a fast one, and then in the last like 5 minutes everything comes together. Oh, and then he gets shot through the mouth and he's got to have stitches, and I guess he gets brain damage too, and now he's
somehow
yeah, and then the family's telling him use a chain. I don't know, it's bad. And
take your chainsaw, boy.
It's so...
The mom's kind of the villain of this film.
You made your mom proud when he murders somebody. Yeah. So again, that shows that like he's pressured by the family, but the way the character is presented, I don't buy it. And the way I view Leatherface, I don't think he's ever been outside of the house. You know, he's never been to a mental institution. Like that's not part of that origin of Gunnar Hansen's.
No.
Oh, Leatherface. So this is totally subtractive, and I don't
He's a
watch
homebody. He's a severely wounded predator who was like the wolf pup you raised, but is like now too big to hand. Or Mike, we've talked about this.
He only listens to one person, this kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. The woman who had a fucking chimp in her house, that old lady, and got her fucking face ripped off when we were talking about Gordy's home.
Yeah, yeah.
That shit happens. That is a Leatherface.
Yeah, this is not. This is terrible.
No, this is Bulgaria again, Mike. This is made for, what do you think, $10?
Yeah, right. This is
American dollars.
What if Rob Zombie's Halloween, like the whole first act of like, where did Michael come from? It's worse than that.
For a 2017 movie, it has the early 2000s aesthetic. And I would argue that the Jessica Biel one doesn't.
No. It has a little bit of fast editing and stuff. It is a little 2003, but it's still awesome. So yeah, this one sucks. Don't watch it. Then apparently this kid grows up into our classic Leatherface. 74 happens. And then we're in the bad timeline, Texas Chainsaw 3D, 2013. This is also on HBO, so you can watch one good one and one terrible one. Actually, don't even watch this one. Did you watch
this one?
You like 3D?
I
okay.
like this one.
Pitch me on
3D.
it. Pitch the listeners.
Alexandra Daddario, of course, is our lead actress. You've seen her in a billion things. She's fine. It has that same sort of...
Well, her name is Heather.
Heather. It has that energy of, well, it kind of attempts the bait and switch that the first one does of what I called the multi-genre-ness of it, where you are getting a lot of story happening in short times, but I don't know. I like the douchebag characters, the 2012 idiots that inhabited it. I don't know.
It is wild.
I'm a sexy thief. Let me in your car.
You know what I put in my notes here?
Yeah.
This is trick or treat motherfucker level. Like this is Halloween Insurrection. Like it is absurd and goofy and not good, but there is some good times to be had with it. Do your thing, cuz.
And I was literally about to say, Mike,
yeah,
the Coolio, is it Coolio? But
yeah.
Whoever does
or Busta Rhymes.
Karate. Thank you.
Yep.
I've been mixing them up.
Freddie Harris. Yeah.
Which
rest in peace, Coolio.
Rest in peace, Coolio. The Busta Rhymes doing karate to Michael moment is do your thing, cuz, where she slides him the chainsaw. I laughed so fucking hard watching that moment this time. And it does have that Drive Angry 3D, the dumbass 3D effects where you get like the moments where he throws a chainsaw at the screen and any practical chainsaw disappears in like the worst CGI chainsaw you've ever seen, just like spirals at you. It's hilarious.
The opening logo like meat and it like collapses in front of you like, oh, 3D logo, right? Yeah, there's fun to be had here because it's really cheesy. But if this is, I can't remember what year it's set, but like, if this character is a cousin of Leatherface, that's what we find out. She's inheriting a house. Her grandmother dies. She's going to go inherit the old house, right? But it's like, you should be like 40 years old. Like, this is set in the 2000s. Yes. Even if it's set in the 90s, you should be like 30. These people are in their early 20s. So that's...
Oh, that doesn't make any sense.
Who cares about time? But who cares about that anyway? But yeah, there is weird fun.
Well, what
to be
year
had
is Leatherface? The 70s? Is that when that's supposed to be?
Well, the original incident happens in 1973 in canon. 1973 is when the Texas Chain Saw Massacre happens, and the movie is released in 74.
They're not very old-timey in that prequel.
No, they're in Bulgaria. The one good thing about Leatherface is when they push that wheelchair out the window. That's the only thing that got me. I was like, that's fucking wild.
That is the cousin moment of that film.
Right.
Did you stay for the post-cred scene of this film?
Oh, I didn't, dude.
Now
what is
you
it,
know
please?
I did, because imagine Colin getting a little more high after watching this one at like midnight on like a Sunday, and I'm listening to, I think it's Smashing Pumpkins cover like the Sweeter the Meat, like that song that plays over the credits with like the closer the bone, the sweeter the meat, and I'm like, this is fucking nuts, and I'm watching it go by. Cuts to black, comes up, the abusive step-parents follow up on Alexandra Daddario, Heather, to see how she's doing, to see what she's been up to, how her grandmother's house is, knock on the door saying like, oh, if I knew this place was nice, then maybe I would have taken her here. And they're, coming up.
Right.
Door opens. We don't see it. You just hear a chainsaw. They scream, cut to black. I was like, what?
So we did touch on something earlier about how like you kind of sympathize with Leatherface, right? And if any horror villain deserves a face turn, it might be him. Yes. And he is a murderer, so keep that.
Him and Jason.
Yeah, him and Jason. Yeah, they're kind of sympathetic, but it is interesting that she allies. Like, we get the Leatherface face turn. He becomes a good guy in this, and then she just agrees. You know what? I'm going to live in my grandma's house and take care of Leatherface for the rest of my life.
Enough.
He might have killed all of my friends, but I'm going to live with this guy. It's
you know what?
bizarre.
You got a thing that's going to work, and this place is great real estate, and you're like, I do understand that.
They should have put Jordan Brewster in this because it's all about family. At the end of the day, that's what she chooses. She chooses family. Her and Leatherface.
Can we get Vin to play Leatherface in a movie?
He's not tall enough. Sorry, buddy. Sorry, buddy. Who is, real quick, Tyler Mane would have been great.
He would have been great, yes.
Yeah, not as aggressive as Michael was, but he would have been, the guy who gets Dremeled. That's the guy who Tyler Mane kills for the boiler suit. Remember when he kills that guy in the bathroom? The big dude?
Yes.
That's the guy in Texas Chainsaw 3, Ken Foray, who gets Dremeled. Yeah, but anyway.
That's crazy.
Tyler Mane was good. But back to 3D. It's got like, Trick or Treat Motherfucker, or like Paul Rudd beating up Michael Myers with a steel pipe energy. Like, that's that of the franchise. So if you just want two fun things at a party, or the 3-party ones, Chainsaw 2, Chainsaw 4, Chainsaw 3D. Just put those on in the background at a party and you'll be good.
A burned up Dr. Loomis should have been in this movie unexplained, but he should have been chasing Leatherface. And I've been like, that makes sense.
Dr. Loomis cinematic universe, he just tracks down the killers. Freddy, what are you doing?
Every film, forget John Larroquette. Every film should start with Donald Pleasance going like, I'm chasing him because of this thing he did.
He's like Van Helsing.
Yes, he is.
Yeah, just for all of the franchises. Jason is a misunderstood boy. Jason, you don't want to do this. Oh, that'd be incredible.
You're just a froggy boy.
I'm here for the Pleasance universe.
Wait till the 14th, Jason. Yeah.
Right. Oh, man, that's great. But I guess that covers all of the main Texas Chainsaw movies. Maybe we want to get to a final segment where we kind of we'll rank, wrap it up, and talk about maybe some of the other things that have been inspired by this franchise. What ones we recommend watching and skipping. We'll recap that all right after this.
We're back here in Texas. That's right, talking the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. We didn't say this, but in the first film, Chain and Saw are separated. They're not supposed to be. That was a mistake Tobe Hooper made, but for copyright reasons, it really worked out for him. He ended up being able to hold the license a lot easier because he was like, I made it a thing. So
he got too high, typed a space bar, and
I
history is made.
guarantee you that is what happened.
Saw, yeah.
Damn it.
You delete the Chain and you have a whole nother franchise too. We've not talked about. But so Texas Chain
Texas Saw. You're talking about Texas Saw.
Texas Saw. Yeah. Oh man, the Texas Saw.
Do you want to play a game, y'all?
Y'all want to play a game? Incredible. We got that big football game in Texas Chain Saw 2 anyway. So
so good.
So these movies, right? We just talked kind of the whole franchise. Let's do a recap of the watches and the skips, right? Chainsaw 1 and 2 watch, 3 skip, 4 watch, reboot and the prequel of the reboot watch, Leatherface skip, and 3D watch. So actually, there's only 2 skips in the entire franchise.
You're giving 3D a watch after all? We can be split on that.
Do your thing, cuz.
Do your thing,
cuz. It has that energy of like the weird one, right?
It has Snakes on a Plane energy, where people are just like, "What is this? Some kind of Texas Chainsaw Massacre?"
Yeah. And like Leatherface is just in the basement, like still. I don't know. It's weird, but that's the goofy one that you can have.
Yes.
And you make fun of it while you watch it, right?
Yes.
So
goofier than the second one.
Yeah, way goofy. The second one's competently goofy. This one is incompetently goofy. So there's only 2 skips in the franchise. Yeah. I do want to mention a couple of weird things. Like in the reboot, I advocate for them, but I don't like that they changed the family name to Hewitt.
Strange.
Like, just keep it with the Sawyers, you know.
Why
again.
would you? Yeah.
Yeah, and then like even in the worst timeline, they changed Leatherface's name to Jedediah. They call him like Bubba in the original. You know, it's like, why are we changing name? Like, it's Sawyer. It's the fucking Sawyers. It's Michael Myers. It's not Michael Schneider in the next one, right? It's a brand. It's a brand name, and when they get away from the brand name, it frustrates me a little bit. But the reboots are still good, so I'm all in on the Sawyer kind of family. And yeah, final thoughts before ranking. Like, this series is at its best when it's about the family and this group of, quote, backwoods people who you just happen to come across at a bad time. It's not about the chainsaw, and the third movie has the Saw is family like engraved on them. Like, they're really trying to make the chainsaw the star. Yes. But it works best when it's a family affair. Fast and Furious, you know. I don't know, how do you feel about that?
Yeah. Like we said with the muddled messaging before, I think there's a reason now I see in my mind why you wouldn't call a Friday the 13th movie Jason. I know Jason X exists, but just Jason or just Michael. I don't really like just Leatherface. I like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And, you know, blueprint-wise, I don't know how you couldn't just look at the first one and go like, well, let's just ally ourselves as close to this as possible.
Yeah, it's just wrong place, wrong time. And it's a fucking crazy situation that you could end up in, right? And to be fair, they're trespassing, so those murders are completely justified.
Hey, in Texas,
right? Castle law, baby.
With the stand
your coming right for us.
I am allowed to go outside and cut a person in two with my chainsaw if I feel threatened.
It's my property, you know. It's shit.
As long as I am on my property.
Yeah, no, and that's an interesting way to look at it too. I never even thought about that. Even Texas Chainsaw 2, they are trespassing on the Sawyer's little Texas Battle Land, whatever that theme park is.
Yeah, and then they fall in like the dungeon. So then they're just, you can't just get
But it's still their property.
Well,
if they
like
own
a
it,
underground lair.
Wild. They have that hallway where they just set up the families in dioramas, the skeletons of their victims in dioramas with little lamps and Christmas lights. What a wild series. But yeah, it should be about the family, and when they try to focus too much on Leatherface, it's no good. And again, I think the dinner scene is the real prove it moment for any of these.
I love that take.
Yeah, and I think the best 2 are in the first 2 movies. First one's horrifying. The second one is disturbing in its own way. The grandpa can't even hold the hammer, right? It's like it has its own kind of merit. And then
Mike Pearl, the sequel to X, has a insane dinner scene, and I'm now seeing that he has clearly just been drawing from that first film.
You saw Pearl?
You're so right, dead on. Yeah, you would adore it.
I wanted to get to see it before this, because I guess this would be a good time to switch over. But yeah, the dinner scene is to prove it because it's about that dynamic. And that's why Matthew McConaughey, all right, like that's one of the most unhinged ones we ever get.
You said it.
Yeah. And the other ones that are less high up, there's some decent ones in the reboot. But I wanted to talk about like X and Pearl because I'm very excited about that. That's a prequel to X. Again, very inspired.
We're going to get one more.
We are getting another one.
It seems like now, yes.
I love this universe, and I'm glad because I watched X a couple months ago, and it got me really thinking about Texas Chainsaw again and how underappreciated it is. But it's not that it's underappreciated. I think it's misunderstood by both filmmakers and audiences. And you need to kind of be educated on how to interact with the series. Like, what are you looking for? You're not looking for a kill count. Jason, or Leatherface kills like less than 5 people in every single movie. It's not a body count thing. It's a family dynamic and a character dynamic thing. And to see X capitalizing off that, and then now Pearl, like if you said it's awesome. I can't wait to see it. I'll probably go see it this weekend. I'm very, very excited to see more of things taking inspiration from this.
Mike, for our YouTube followers, which you should be checking out, Normie listeners, show off your awesome shirt.
Yeah, so I have this Japanese Texas Chainsaw Massacre shirt.
Jesus
and it's,
Christ.
All the original, Gunnar Hansen and the original imagery. It's very cool. Got it in Little Tokyo. I figured this is perfect for the show. And my spooky season Texas Chainsaw shirt. So
does it have on it the greatest tagline of all time, who will survive and what will be left of them?
Right here, who will survive and what will be left of them. Yeah.
And it's the marketing. I mean, that's the best tagline I've ever heard.
And they did the whole based on true events thing, kind of. Like, they set it up that way. They don't explicitly say it, but they
again, Toby Hooper's stoned out of his mind. He might have thought this did happen.
Yeah, well, sort of. So, yeah, you get that opening crawl. It's iconic, right? And a lot of horror movies would steal that for marketing based on a true story. The Exorcism of Emily Rose. It's like, okay, whatever.
I'm realizing the Don't trailer from Grindhouse, that parody trailer, Don't Go in the Woods, is clearly a parody of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre trailer.
Yeah, no, for sure. Again, just don't go in that house, right? Nope.
What happened is a true story.
Yeah. Yeah, and like Jordan Peele, like, if you just say nope, hey, we're going to go to that house? Nope. Problem solved, right? But I do want to talk. There's a couple little things like X and Pearl that I think have correctly borrowed from or been inspired by this. And there's a couple of random things. I did mention Rob Zombie. His whole career is a facsimile of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. He's built his whole brand off of it, sometimes more successful than others, like House of a Thousand Corpses, Devil Rejects. Like, there's, we rag on him because his Halloween movies suck, but he can do some stuff. But it's all Texas Chainsaw. Yeah, Lords of Salem, but it's all Texas Chainsaw DNA, and that's fine. A lot of people make a whole career off of Halloween DNA. You know what I mean? So do what you do. But one of the most interesting ones that I thought of was, have you seen the movie Nothing But Trouble with Dan Aykroyd?
Mike.
Yeah.
Mike.
Yeah.
When I just said that basement lair thing, I was like, ooh, in my wrap up, I'm going to recommend Nothing But Trouble to Mike and ask him if he's seen that.
Yes.
Again, not Toby Hooper, but that is a film that has this energy. You're so right.
So this energy, wrong place, wrong time, corrupt police, right? Before the R. Lee Emery
Scary
angle.
skeletons.
Scary skeletons. They call it, the judge is coming, in Texas Chainsaw 2, like we get the judge, Dan Aykroyd.
Fucked up family.
And we get yuppies, right? Like very Texas Chainsaw 2, like these city folk coming in where they shouldn't, where they don't belong. But 100% more Tupac and Digital Underground in that one. So so it's a weird dark comedy too, but it has
that movie fucking sucks. Dude.
I love that movie. Come on.
Mike, that movie fucking sucks.
That's a guilty pleasure movie. I like it. I like it because it's so Texas Chainsaw. You know what I mean?
Yes, I like this take. Yes.
Yeah, so it's one of the things that was done, and then obviously we said Wrong Turn, Hills Have Eyes. Like even the remake of Hills Have Eyes, I think is successful.
It sucks when you get a sequel to the thing you actually like, let's say the last Halloween movie, Evil Dies Tonight, which maybe on this podcast we didn't love that much.
They had a guy go out a window, but he wasn't in a wheelchair. Points
Very
off.
true.
Yeah.
But then when you get something like it, like Malignant, you're like, oh, thank God someone's doing this. So to your point, the X's of the worlds, the Pearls of the worlds, the other stuff, The fact that somebody's trying to do a video game of this too, did you see that?
Yeah,
That they're
that's
doing
right.
one of those isometric team-based, horror games that they do now.
I am so excited for this. And I'm glad you brought it up because I watched a little bit of literature on it. Read whatever. We call our listeners watchers and our watchers readers.
That's right.
So it's fascinating because it's not balanced, right? Dead by Daylight, it's one murderer, which Leatherface has been in Dead by Daylight. He's been in Mortal Kombat, right? But that's one killer.
Really? Right.
Yeah, that's one killer versus a bunch of survivors. This is 3 killers versus 4 survivors. So you can play the family. You get to play as Drayton, the cook. You can play as the hitchhiker. You can play as Leatherface. And they all got different powers. Like I said, the series is at its best when it's about the family. You get Chop Top and Drayton and Leatherface, and you get the hitchhiker all in here. It seems promising that this 3v4, where they have different skills and stuff.
We'll do our end of the year spooktacular where we just kind of talk about the horror stuff we enjoyed all October long as you listen to the rest of our spooky episodes. But I'll headline one of my points and say, I've been playing the Evil Dead game, Mike. It fucking sucks, dude. And it's one of those 4 versus 1. And I don't like that. When I read the interesting style this one's doing, I was like, oh, maybe they've figured it out.
Yeah, I think I love the idea of a 3v4. Because again, that's what it was in the original movie. The hitchhiker sets him up and marks the van. Then, we don't have any gasoline. Do you want to buy some barbecue, by the way? It's human. And then Leatherface is in the house and it's revealed, we're all working together, right? I'll pick her up in the car. If she escapes, we'll come down, right? So that's very fucking cool. I hope it's good. Yeah. Who would you want to be in that game? Which villain would you most want to play?
I love Chop Top. And now, did you see post the sequel, there was an attempt to make a solo Chop Top film that was like his adventures in Nam and then leading up to the second film. Supposedly they shot it all in the year 2000, Mike, with the original actor, and it hasn't been released just because of rights issues.
Whoa. Is that All American Massacre? Is that what that was?
Yes, that is what that's
I know
called.
There was a canceled project.
And what an amazing title.
Wow, no, that would have been incredible. And I do love Chop Top as a character. I would love to see that. Hopefully rights issues get cleared. That's one prequel that I would be into.
Yeah, but who you playing as? You playing as Leatherface? No, you're playing as the cook.
I was going to say Hitchhiker, too. I kind of like
Really?
I kind of like how weird that character is, yeah. But Leatherface would be cool, too, but I think that's too obvious. I'd be down to play the Hitchhiker.
No, we're both into Chop Top, man.
Yeah, very, very disturbing scene for that, but interesting stuff. Shall we rank these? Or, do you have a ranking of the ones you've seen?
Definitely.
Yeah, let's do that.
So I'll leave 3, and I will leave off. What is the prequel just called? For
Leatherface.
That one's just called Leatherface?
That one's called Texas Chain Saw Massacre: The Beginning.
The Beginning.
Yeah, I had to say the whole title.
That is one of those films where you're just like, no way does that exist, but it does.
It's good too.
Yes, I will go and say 2 is my favorite because that one I can really stomach it. You can watch it at any time. It doesn't have to just be spooky season. If you want a comedy, you can throw that on too. I think that's so fun. It's maybe not in the spirit of the franchise just because it's disproportionately outweighed by all these sort of like attempts at figuring out what the franchise are, but I don't think that counts. I think it's cooler that it's going with the original director, and Tobe Hooper's the man.
Yeah.
And get stoned and watch it. That's what he would have wanted.
100%.
Then I'll go 1. Then I will go, boy, I did like 4 so much. I'm going to go 3D over it, but just a little, again, for the camp factor.
Wow, the camp's that high.
Then I'm going to go 4. Just right there with it, I swear to God. So incredible. Good. Then I'll go 2013, or 2003. What's the Jessica Biel one?
That's the reboot, 2003, yep.
And that is that just Texas Chainsaw Massacre, or is it the Texas Chainsaw Massacre? I think Chainsaw is together is the difference, right?
Yeah, Chainsaw is together. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, one word.
Okay, yep. 5. Then I'll go Netflix. Then
At that
I'll
point,
go
we're
Leatherface,
like diminishing returns,
yeah.
right?
So that's my 7, but I'm excited to hear your 9.
Yeah, I like you going number 2 because 1, man, like it can be hard to stomach like that last act. Like
I think you have to be in the mood to watch the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
It's an education. Like you're learning, but it's not easy. And it's been accused, of like, oh, this is like exploitative of violence towards women, right? Because like that survivor goes through a lot of terrible shit, and it's hard to sit through. And her performance is so visceral, like it is uncomfortable. It's also a masterpiece, right? So it's my number one, but you have to be ready for it, right? Because it's not like anything else in the franchise. You had to be ready going in. But number one, then Texas Chainsaw 2, then the reboot is my number 3. The prequel to the reboot is my number 4. Then Next Generation. Then, Netflix, 3D, Chainsaw 3 with the Dremel, and the shittiest one, Leatherface. Yeah.
Wow. So Leatherface 3 almost at the bottom, and Leatherface at the bottom. Again, that kind of shows you where your interests in the series are.
Not with Leatherface. Yeah, I didn't even realize that. Yeah, that's the technical title of 3 is Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw 3. So yeah, those are at the bottom. But I was surprised how high up the reboots got. As right behind 1 and 2. They're right there. 1, 2, 3, 4. Original, reboot. Like
that's great.
Look at that. Good job rebooting those things. And then we go back to Next Generation for some camp. All right.
Have you seen like Last House on the Left?
I haven't, but I had it listed as something inspired vaguely by my understanding.
Or even you saying Hills Have Eyes. My horror tastes just do not go disgusting. I'm gonna bust some final thoughts on you here real quick and say, I'm for our YouTube viewers, I'm wearing my horror franchise, Evil
Another
Dead
chainsaw.
2. And that's the thing, Mike. My hero and my favorite horror film uses the same weapon. I said earlier, I'm scared of it and I find it disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I don't know. It's this double-edged chainsaw to me, where on one hand, I'm so scared of them. On the other, that's the point. Like, it is a good tool for horror because it is weird that we have this thing that can just destroy you, basically.
So you're Dennis Hopper. You have one chainsaw in each hand. One is fear and one is empowerment, right?
There's so many sparks just shooting all over the place, Mike.
Wild.
And you just reiterated why that one is my favorite one, by the way. Thank you.
When he's buying those chainsaws,
doubt in my mind for the second,
and that old man cannot believe it.
Can you imagine too him saying to his kids, "You want to see a horror movie?" and not showing them Blue Velvet, showing them fucking
Texas Chainsaw 2,
number 2. This is a misjudge the book cover. This is one where I should have come to this sooner. And I think that the turnoff is that stuff. I wonder if I should check out Hills Have Eyes and Last House on the Left and see if there is something that I can get out of what you rightfully called, what has been called trashy, misogynistic horror.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not the case with this one, though. It was made by such a progressive person. And I really do feel that. And it's not subtle. Like when I watched it this time, I was like, oh my, like, the whole state is personified by these people fighting these others, like the hippies, disabled people, people of color, like literally
things. Yeah.
Yes. And now in our daily life, where what Texas has become, where it is just in the news every day for how it treats people. Like it just could not have resonated more, Mike. I really mean that. I'm really glad we fucking finally got around to this franchise, dude.
Likewise.
Amazing.
And hopefully Jacob will get back from that farmhouse he was checking out next week. But it is weird.
God, why did we pick up that hiker that took Joe?
Why did we do that? You're right, though. There's something that this franchise can do, and I think a lot of horror directors generally are more progressive or left leaning. And there's commentary, sci-fi too. We put commentary, and the villains are the ones who are resistant to change or outsiders, or what I mean. So it's pretty explicit that there's abuse happening to the heroines, right? But obviously it's not advocated, and I think the way they treat the trauma she experiences on the other side in the back of that truck, that's real. That's Jesse in Breaking Bad, and you know what I mean? Like, what the fuck? Like, it's treated so honestly that it, like, you feel it, right? So I think everything that they're trying to do is valid, and it shouldn't be like, oh, this movie's just fucking, torture porn, right? You know, it's like, this isn't Eli Roth, right? This is someone who has a message, right? You just have to be able to stomach it. It's going to make you uncomfortable, right? And that's the point. And that's what Tobe Hooper created with this genre. And it has sometimes strayed into the exploitative path, you know, in lesser hands, you know.
The people who learn the lessons are the Eli Roths who make Hostel and go like, oh, to scare people? Like, I can just show them like some fucked up shit and like fucking people getting like fucking fucked up and shit.
Yeah.
Like, dude,
that's not the point.
Like, relax.
There's
that's
like
not the point.
Blood. Yeah. But then you get something like X or Pearl and you're like, you understood the assignment. So listeners, you should understand the assignment when going into the Texas Chainsaw universe, that it's a lot of things. Stupid is not one of them when it shines. And yeah, just give it a chance if you haven't. It's a lot different, and I think in the modern era, it's the lesser of all franchises. It has the least legacy, but it was first.
Sadly.
It was first, and I think Texas Chainsaw 1 is better than Halloween 1. Hot take.
Wow, that is a hot take. I'm not there yet.
That's sizzling.
Let me ask you, sizzling Mike, the lover of this franchise.
Thank you.
We got this movie this year. Came out in 2022. Okay, we got one this year, Mike. It's like you can't, you know,
in February.
Sometimes
good timing.
You know, well, but like, yeah,
just hold it till now, you idiots.
Straight to Netflix. You know, why not? You're just like, all the choices you make.
Yeah.
But you sort of get these football fan reactions, right? Where you can have a season where you're doing great, and then literally the next day you can be like, we haven't done good in a while. What's with these bums? You know, like, we need to do that, and you can sort of micromanage. Now, what do you say to that, where it's like, what is the future of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre in your mind as far as films go? Is it a TV show? Do they go the Chucky route from here out after sort of, you know, again, I'm going to say a failure. I don't have those metrics. It's not like Netflix was like, yo, blah, blah. I looked it up. It was number 2 in their top 10 for 2 weeks after its release. What does that mean? I don't know.
And a lot of you also get the fucking go woke, go broke fucking bros out on this one, and you hate that. You fucking hate that. So there's a little bit of that too.
What are you talking about?
It's like, have you seen the original movie? Like, what side are you on? Anyway, I think if they're gonna do a TV show, it would have to be called, you know, fucking Sawyers. And it's just them living and killing people. And it's like Dexter. Like, how long can they evade the law? But in canon,
Sawyers of Texas. Now it's like animal.
Or it's named after the restaurant or something, right?
Yeah. That's interesting, Mike.
Yeah, so you do that as a TV show. But I think what you do is, like you said, Texas is in the news all the time. You know, we get, again, memes. Don't California my Texas. Like, that environment is ripe for a prime story of these Texas, you know, these tech bros from fucking Seattle, Google and shit, up in San Francisco,
Mike,
Silicon Valley, going down there to gentrify. Like, they could have done it better than with influencers.
Dude,
like,
Mike, the story you do now, if I was a fucking Hollywood screenwriter and I had the pulse where I was like, yo, I can get someone in the Texas Chainsaw people to see this, you do a person fleeing Texas to get an abortion who has to break down partway through it and gets chased by fucking Leatherface. And the cops don't help. The state of Texas does not help.
That's fucking crazy. Something like that. And, you know, you could throw them in a Tesla that runs out of battery, right? You know, and there's ways to update it.
I'll never get over it.
If anything, now is another time for maybe a complete reboot where you get these same deranged cannibal family. They're just doing it now. And we look at the social issues of now and what's facing this country. You know, obviously, you know, violence in schools and shit is pretty wild. You know, maybe that's how Leatherface became traumatized. Who the fuck knows? Not to use tragedy as a, you know, benign story point, but like there's things you can do. And that's what this franchise should be doing instead of just, you know, gore exploitation. Like let's let's ask questions about how we live in this country. And, you know, I don't know. Maybe
they've done that twice before. We argued successfully, but I just wonder if an audience would show up for a third reboot. I don't know.
doesn't really have the name brand again. So tell your friends to watch these, at least the good ones, because I think, yeah, it's like Leatherface himself, you know. He's just misunderstood, as R. Lee Emery said it in the reboot prequel. But it's like, this franchise is misunderstood, and I think it deserves some more love, just like Leatherface. Just give him a little more love. If he would have been raised by Ash, if Ash was his dad and they were chainsaw buddies, he would have turned out as a swell young man working at S-Mart.
He'd been very helpful.
Yeah, he would have loved it. It would have been great.
Pushing carts around with his mask on.
You know what? Fuck it. Give me the buddy comedy where Leatherface and Ash have to team up and fight a bunch of Deadites.
Ooh, if you could do a Freddy versus Jason style, who would you pit a Leatherface versus? I guess Ash would be the coolest choice.
You pit him against Ash, and then they become allies.
And then they
turn on the family.
Together.
They turns on his abusers. It's perfect.
So
face turn him for real.
So the family is whatever, blah, blah, blah. But the Kandarian demon, the main spirit, does possess the father. And from there, he is pulling the strings. And it is like fully like, I got to kill your dad. You know, and Leatherface is like, okay.
Yeah. They have a duel.
Mike, I'm there.
That's
baby.
awesome.
Maybe
Dennis Hopper. Yeah.
Also, please, someone out there, make a video of Donald Pleasance hunting the other serial killers, because now I will never get over that idea.
I gotta start rotoscoping every shot of him out just so I can recycle it. Well, luckily,
but only burned up Donald Pleasance. I only want the one from the one film
where he's burnt. Because I was gonna say it's a lot easier to rotoscope that scene where he stands in front of a house for 3 acts.
Yeah,
you know, but just waiting.
I had so much fun watching all those Halloween films last year. Mike, I had so much fun watching almost all the Leatherfaces here. I'm going to track down that other prequel.
It's worth it.
Listeners, we hope you're so excited for spooky season. We said before, we're going to take the month off from our usual Star Trek watch at the end of the year, but otherwise we're going to knock out some pretty good horror episodes like we usually do. I think we're pretty excited.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. And Colin, you always do beginning, this is coming out October 4th. You always do one horror movie per day, all October, correct?
That's correct.
I'm going to follow in your footsteps. After watching
31 days.
Why not? I did 9 of these. I know there's another franchise in the works, the Jacobs pitching, so I can get started on the 1st with that. But I'm going to watch one horror movie a day all through October, just like my hero Colin.
Hey, thanks, buddy. All right, listeners, 31 days of Halloween. You do it too. Log them. Let us know on a list, what day each film. Shoot that over to us on all our socials, at Normies_like_us. We'd love to see that. Leave a comment there. Go like, yo, I watched this. I got a Shudder subscription this year. I'm checking out the new stuff. I'm watching the old stuff like Texas Chain Saw for the first time. We want to hear all that fucking shit. Hit us with all your recommendations, please. And check us out at the YouTube where we keep plugging. You can watch us along.
Heck yeah, man. Stay safe, stay spooky. Thanks for listening to a madman's ramblings on Texas Chain Saw Massacre franchise. Yeah,
we've been your hosts. This is, I'm going to go more family oriented. I guess just like Colin Sawyer, I guess.
I'll go the way you suggested me. I'll say Mike her face. I hardly know her face. I'll put it on. Yeah. All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Vroom, vroom.
Even the weapon runs on gasoline.